Okay, I do believe this is video number 6 out of the full series of my resume. So, we're into it in an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes if this one's number 7, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 45 minutes there. These are 15-minute clips. I don't know how well they're set up. You probably should watch them first to last. Um, Again, in some of that material, we're talking about, I was especially there at the end, with that psychology and those physics and how close they are. We're dealing with, future events. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. Even NASA, they say they know the numbers, but they're just, they might be looking at it like a form like this, but, disaster control and the basic scientific experiments that they're running, a lot of that is the same thing as common practicing, operating procedures of something that's really laid out, and taking a rookie and making them go day one because timelines of events you need to do may take 20 years, but there's a crew guy that could achieve those things because, let's face it, they're NASA league, not something else. It's not rocket science, but it is rocket science. I like to describe it as, there's general relativity, which, is the kind of, I can tell a little bit of the future. I can kind of tell you what you're thinking right now with a little bit of psychology and some physics about the environment around you. I can maybe get you to do some boards for me because I know those numbers, and it's sensible that the daily operation, so a command directive is that real physical thing. But there is the real big hurricane aspect, how all these things integrate into an entanglement system of like home life and the psychology of it all, or just a rain day screwing up those numbers and making your count all weird. And another big aspect I wanted to specify was those things are very physical, and there are ways to achieve what's really going on with a hurricane. um, you might not think of what I did there with the garden and everything like that was smart, but if you actually understand what I did, and I didn't realize what the hurricane was until I actually got in there and I had a chance to go into the system and see what kind of resources they had in the prison, the lawyer, what they were really doing. I might not have talked to a district attorney or really got a chance to talk to those judges or anything like that, but I was thinking long game. I was prepared for these things, and I knew the consequences. I knew what I was dealing with, and I knew how to handle it. How to say even 3% out of that ratio, I was still going to succeed. I had a good resume. You could take that when you ask the question if I ever get an interview. It didn't happen through the system that somebody saw a great scientific method or managerial skills, or I certainly could use it for botany or agriculture, a greenhouse, that goes to the resume. You're thinking about those things long game. You just may not be aware of when they're going to position where and when, two places in the same time, and quantum physics as it is. But one of those big things, again, I didn't want to undersell was, this is no substitution for actual back work. One of those things I'll tell you is, those boards, if you look at that board, it'll just sit there and look right back at you. You might be able to talk to that board. Hey, man, you're not going to get nothing done, and neither am I, if you just let me sit there, is what it'll tell you. Nobody's going to get paid. You better be able to listen to that if you're just sitting there not doing nothing. I like to consider them like mud gremlins and things like that. I know in the bay, they'll pull you right under, drown you, and if you don't clean up that bay and there's little stickers and rocks floating all around and they trip you up and you trip and fall into an 8-foot gantry saw while it's running, talking about the labor here unloading bays and equipment because your system's not clean and you're not functioning the diversified inconsistencies, Murphy's laws, and things like that, it'll eat you. A lot of those machines, even a shovel will get you if you don't pay attention to your back, how long the day's got to be, how long you got to plan that stuff out. And it is a hurricane. Trees coming at you, road sign, there's a cow, it don't care. That's the universe. If it can, it will. That's old Murphy's Law, right? Again, whether it be the top or the bottom, a crew guy that fucks up a piece of equipment and now new laws are created from the job, or actually some person that does a job and really good at it from that ground guy's position, and then the standards change, and everybody beyond that person will be doing it like that. Murphy's Law. If it can, it will. Law of the universe. Well, gremlins. Wailing away on nukes because they matter, and they have that kind of impact. But again, one of those things I want to specify here was, laws can be written like that. And the big part of this is, I don't want to just put out the quantum physics here, because it seems like, to a lot of people I've had in the past, you would think that this takes up a lot of extra time in the game, but it's the speed of light, really. I say again, there's a lot of common sense. There's two big ways of going about it, just like the notes that have notes and has notes. So there's a person, a new crew guy that did something different. There was the common law, and then just this little tiny thing that they did, or the tiny things that they do become entire systems when they get in there. And I actually, in my own personal time, if not commissioned or asked specifically to do so, it's just a lot of it winds up being training. Like, I can say, hey, here's a quick throwdown of what that looks like, of a spreadsheet or an inventory, or basically where you'd put that on the resume. It's a general labor's position, and then when you open it up to all the fine micro details that go into there, it's common sense. You got to learn it like that. But eventually, things like OSHA, because there are a real need for it, will mandate that you do some of this for certain jobs and certain positions. Not all of them. But in the grind specifically, it's more that you know these orders and numbers common sensely. Because when you know them common sense, it just becomes order. You're going to be able to click bang, click bang, click bang, this much, this long of the term, because you're a general, right in the command directive, because you know all the physical positions. Or you can generalize them well enough so somebody else, Murphy there, he could make the jump later on. And they don't take long. It doesn't take long to to map out even something like a CNC machine. You whip out your cell phone camera, you make the cell of the frame. You can do it like that on your computer terminal. You don't have to physically draw them out with pencil. A lot of that, again, is just this memory motion. In a lot of cases, there's so much information in that stuff that it's one, just not practical on the common sense side. I just need them to do this on that day and do that. Well, the beautiful thing about a stack of paper this thick is you can go causally, c-squared, this much of it, right down to that one page. Bang, there it is. This is what you got in your head at all times. This is what I tell them. I tell bosses, crew guys, managers, But it's more of a physics lecture, more than anything, psychology. Build them up. These are your skills. These are your managerial skills. This is, when you start to micro detail things like this, because you're looking at it, and it's an irrational number. You're saying that physical frame, this much in time, is a piece of paper, and you're scaling it. The boss tells you that. You got some scale time to figure that out. Rookie time. And that's got another state where you're going to be regular time, and then you've been there pro vet, the max times, or the stacked order times. There's a lot of different variations that come onto that. And sometimes the machine has limitations. Sometimes those gantry saws can only crank so fast. Sometimes a certain dude with a shovel, or dudette, a Mexican Jew black, I don't know, I'm just saying, can only go so fast, so hard. That's what they are, and you can tell by looking at them, the irrational number, just sweat dripping off their face. Well, that's what I can kind of generally expect when you say a certain thing, and it doesn't take long at all. It does take, again, to the machine sometimes to learn certain processes, a certain amount of time to learn certain things, but if you couldn't do it in the first 3 minutes, when they left you off to, I've explained it to you, you asked me to do this, it's probably a pretty in-depth machine. That usually comes with a certain amount of time to learn it. This was a big part. I wanted to make sure I get there just as much as marketing my labor. I'll drop and do you 50 right now. You want to see 200 crunches? You want me to run 5 miles in steel toe boots right now for you? I'll be back in 45 minutes. I promise you. There's a camera over there. I'll take a picture of it for you, and then we'll be back here 45 minutes, if not better. Steel toe boots, all right, maybe 50. Uh, and those are those numbers you got to be looking at. Sneakers, oh, we're doing this in better than 45. I know that's the bit I got right now. And that's what I'm programming XYZ into this machine. And the board isn't, hard maple or, it's MDF. The timelines that you write out on those papers in big companies like that, or every landscaping job, it's not practical. You generalize the gantry saws. I need this block, how to set the X, Y, and Z, the zeroed out general relativity, so when I go to do a trainer system, or there's 8 blocks in there and I let you set it up yourself, you can take that piece of paper off the wall that it was all condensed down to, that will expand infinitely into every position of every 30 billion different cuts, or the standard, only we do these and it's your first few days, do this cut, do these kinds of things. It's right there for you. You can hit me on the mic. Is this what you're talking about? Yeah, so I don't, as a general, have to march my sorry ass down there and do it for you. That's the goal of it. Again, you always have to learn this stuff first. If you don't know it, you're just pulling quantum physics out of the air, right? And force is greater than resistance, and using psychology and an example of special relativity. Here's a monkey on a rocket ship. There's your force is greater than resistance. You tell me what's going to happen. Monkey with a calculator, putting a car spring in the refrigerator that goes off when the door closes and the light goes off. It's like a chemical reaction. Monkey's trying to calculate this. There's your first problem. If you put a person in there, then you might see some chemistry, some physics of why the milk is over here, or the angle of the springs. And I'm getting real heavy with you for the mathematics, but some good mathematics jokes for you in there. And you got to spice it up a little bit. If you're too dry about it, the job gets done, but you can lose it on the other end of it. You want to find that perfect little ratio somewhere in the middle and be very well rounded about as many skills as you can. And I've been fortunate. I might not have stayed at places 10, 20 years in terms of the chips, but I've gained a lot of experience. A lot of those grinders that I went to, what'll 6 months do for you in boot camp? Now think about those kinds of things. This one, that one, this other places. My brother, he's in the Navy. All right, he had boot camp, but he didn't stay in that kind of shape. After he started working his way up the chain. And hey, when you got that authority, you don't need muscle. And you got those kinds of brain powers, and actually fast enough to make it sensible, it is an important skill to have, and you can make that happen, just by divvying up those energies and percentageable ratios. But I personally, I'm a dirty white boy in some cases, so I don't mind. I know it'll catch up on you in the future when you're 50, 60, and 70. You don't keep on it. So it's one of those things I look at, and I try to always integrate it in there. And really, there's no job, even sweeping, that if you're not doing it right, you're doing it as quickly as possible, as good as you can. And if you're doing it like that, it probably hurts. I don't want to do this, it sucks, that's general labor. But again, like I was saying to a lot of these other points, Big Bang, universe, on a resume, a CNC machine, or, a landscaper, they're just very small points that have an infinite number of points on them. Cutting grass with a weed eater, edging with a weed eater. There are so many in-depth fields that when you take that calculation beyond that, you're a manager, you're a quantum physicist, you're a psychologist, you're an officer in the Army or Navy or whatever, and you're training crew. You're a crew trainer, you're an officer, you're a general, is what you are. You understand the relative concepts, the relative points, those relative fields. And a lot of this is as well building the rabbit trap, catching something. Again, this is still a survival game. You want to cultivate it and catch that wild rabbit and bring it in here. I guess it doesn't get any better than that. Catch you on the next one.